Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, November 1st, exactly 2 months before the end of the year. Are you ready? I hope so, because it's going to be a absolute rocket ship between now and the end of the year. Can't help but pump my Phillies, who had a rain delay last night. Not like back in the day, last World Series we're in, they actually split the game. I don't know if you remember that, back in 08. It was like first half the game, rain delay, and then they came back and finished second half the game. So I'm glad that they delayed it last night because my starting pitching can sure use the help. But anyway, back on to the regular scheduled programming. MSPinitiative.com. This and every other session we've ever recorded is here. Everything that we are doing, will be doing, we usually park here on this website. The big thing, obviously, is the MSP Community Block Party down in Orlando in less than 2 weeks. That's right. We are bringing you the All-American Rejects live and in a private concert for the MSP community with a bunch of other stuff, cigar bars and food and beers and airbrushing and beer walls, and it's a whole amusement park, I feel like. So definitely is going to take the notch up 3-4 up the ladder. You're definitely going to enjoy it, but you should pre-register so that you don't have to do it on site. So go to mspinitiative.com, go under Community Block Party Orlando, click on this link to get registered. If you're an MSP, it is 100% free. You literally just have to show up and enjoy. 9 to 2 p.m., 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. starting on Wednesday, November 9th in Orlando on International Drive with the big Ferris wheel. That's part of the attractions. We actually rented the Ferris wheel too. How many times can you say you've done that? So definitely see us there. And then a few weeks after all of that, we're bringing our last Channel Strong Tour bus route through Florida. So good 1-2 punch here, especially if you're from, the area. So we'll be in Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, and Atlanta at the very tail end of November, right after the Thanksgiving break, going into the first couple of days of December. And that should close out the month, year 2022. Before you know it, we'll be talking about New Year's, and it'll be 2023, and we'll be like, did 2020 and 2021 happen? Yes, they did. They absolutely did. So without further ado, our special guest speaker today be Brad from Hook Security. And Brad, for first timers on the show that we've never had on before, we usually like to ask questions like, how did you get into the tech industry, and what was your journey like to get you here to today? So over to you, my friend.
George, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am so pumped up for next week at IT Nation and the block party. We're trying to get as many MSPs and great friends to the party, so can't wait to see you there.
My hope, Brad, I want 2,000 people to be there.
2,000, and we're getting close to that 1,000 mark.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna get. That's why we're trying to race to get as many people pre-registered. Because you imagine 1,000 people registering at the front door.
Oh,
yeah,
that's gonna be tough.
That's a big line.
Go ahead and get in early. The early bird gets the worm, right? And so, well, George, I appreciate you bringing me on. And, my name is Brad Powell. I'm one of the co-founders here at Hook Security. Really been in the tech industry ever since I graduated from the Citadel down in Charleston, South Carolina. And I've done some digital marketing. I've worked with golf courses and helping them build their digital presence. And then got into the physical security world, really, where I was an integrator, and we were helping businesses protect their buildings and assets, right? Thinking like a bad guy. How are we going to break in? What's the data? What's the things that we can come in and take? And we protect those businesses through intrusion, fire systems, surveillance, etc. And then one of my really good friends sold one of his cybersecurity companies and said, hey, look, I'm looking to tackle the human side of security, and come join me. And so that's what I did. And we started Hook Security in 2018. And we've really been focused on the psychological side of security, right? So from the physical world, you got guards, gates, and guns, right? That was my old world. You know this very well. Information security. We're talking about InfoSec, protecting people's data and their information. What we're really focused on here at Hook and helping MSPs do is bring in psychological security, right? Where we're talking about the human brain, the person sitting behind that keyboard, right? And we're talking about literally training multiple parts of users' brains to specifically see this manipulation, understand it, and know how to respond to it, right? And
Huh.
so we're doing that here at Hook.
I was gonna say, I wonder how that works because people have a hard enough time not pressing send on the email or tweet or text message and say, "Oh, I want that one back."
I know. And, unfortunately, the bad guys are getting better and better. It seems to be getting worse before it gets better. And so, we're a small piece to the cybersecurity pie, but a very important piece to the pie, right? And in a lot of ways, we've looked at the MSP as the absolute way to market security awareness training, right? Because they have the expertise, they have the conversations, they're in there with their customers. So we've had a lot of fun working in the channel and working with MSPs to help them not only grow, but also build cultures at their organizations that they're working with around cyber awareness.
Well, I think we can. I know we've said it probably a million times, right? The biggest problem with technology is between the keyboard and the chair. So let me zoom out for a second. I'm gonna put my bar hat on. There's a lot of tools out to cyber awareness, like, and there's big ones, right? Like the know before style companies. Why Hook versus something that's already like that out there?
So I think there's right now around 127-ish competitors in our market, just 120-ish, not a lot. But the difference in what we're doing is we're really bringing edutainment to cybersecurity training, right? It's been a very punitive training experience for most employees. Most employees, George, aren't driving into work every day and thinking about cybersecurity.
It's the
So
last
we're
thing to
here.
think about.
Yeah, so we're here. Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty boring stuff to most people. Like, to me, I think it's cool. Most people probably on this call think it's cool, but your average employee is not driving in thinking, how can I protect my business, by being an
So
employee?
let me tell you a story, Brad. I like stories. So I have an end user who had like they're monitoring another employee's Office 365 mailbox, right? Because something was awry. I didn't get the whole story. And like all of a sudden, an email about said employee showed up in the actual person whose mailbox was being shadowed, monitored, had done a search, and this email popped up. And like they were like, well, this was a private email. She wasn't on the email. How did it get there? Well, it turns out after a little bit of homework, the person dragged that email to the top of their folder list in Outlook, and then all of a sudden it just shows up in a search, because it's in the folder list. The search results search everything, and like this was a major thing. And I was just like, it's a human being problem. I mean, there wasn't a permissions issue here. Somebody didn't hack into the manager's computer or guess their password. You literally just drag the email to the wrong folder, and then like that user could see it. So like this is the when we say, the chain is only as good as the weakest link. Like this is what we're talking about, right? Like forget about all the fancy stuff, right? Like the quadruple factor authentication and biometrics and the password list, and like this is all the cool stuff, right? We're talking about like literally that is the lowest common denominator that we're working with. So like how does the education even try and step that up when we're talking about like leaving the keys in the door, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about it from the human side and agree completely, we as humans are the weakest link. But with really good training and with really good content that's going to resonate with you as a user, how do you consume content? You're on YouTube, you're on Netflix, how you're scrolling through your TikTok, through your Facebook feeds. So really thinking about the user, right, in that experience, because they're already going to be turned off by cybersecurity training. So let's try to make it fun and engaging. We call it edutainment. So we're going to educate and we're going to entertain at the same time. Because at the end of the day, the human, while is the weakest link, can be the greatest asset with really good training, with really good program in place, right? And where we're actually giving you a bit of laugh, where you are actually laughing a little bit about the content. So if we send you a pumpkin spice latte phishing email, you're going to receive an email. I mean,
I bet you
video.
I bet you it's a popular one. A lot of people click on that one.
especially right now, right? And the bad guys know this, right? The bad guys know that Starbucks is advertising like crazy on pumpkin spice lattes. People are driving to go get those PSLs. There's Google ads, there's advertising, and they're capitalizing on that, right? And when you see a trusted brand come into your inbox, you're like, oh yeah, this is Starbucks. But wait, think for a second. Do you receive Starbucks emails to your work email? It's these little things that could really just change the game for a lot of companies.
Well, hold on. I shake my head no, Brad, but I've been around for a while, right? I've had employees come and go, right? And then ultimately, I like to leave those mailboxes around for a while, right? Let's say like, I know some people like to shut the mailboxes down after, 30 days, 60 days. Sometimes I leave them up for a year or two, right? Just see what happens. You would be absolutely shocked what comes to those mailboxes. Like they use their stuff at like Home Depot and like their backup email account for their password reset for their Yahoo account and like all this stuff. And I'm like, why would you do that? But they do. Like it's amazing how many times people use their work account for absolutely nothing work related.
You're right. You're right. And I think that can come back to, policies and procedures, right? Internal. But at the same time, you're right. Look, people have free will, and they're gonna do things that you kind of shake your head at or scratch your head. And the bad guys know this, and they continue to get better. And so we're seeing it left and right. New social engineering attacks, new ways of trying to communicate, or hey, we're sitting in your environment for 6 months, right? We're DMing you on LinkedIn because we know that you guys use that. We're learning how you communicate with one another. We're learning when you might be in Orlando for IT Nation so that we can, exploit something there. So I think it's a scary world, and we're talking about humans. We're going to make mistakes. And
here's a good one, Brad. Sorry, I keep on coming up with good stories.
No, I love
like you'll get a call from somebody saying that they're like part of the conference that you're going to, and like they're telling you that there's like something wrong with your hotel reservation and you need to like fix it or you need to like do something. And it turns out like they just see that you're going to this conference and they're just trying to get you to give them their credit card number, right? So that they can rip your card off. And you wouldn't know any difference because you didn't think, well, why would they be calling me about this?
I mean, absolutely. And those are the tricks that we're seeing day in and day out. It's not only through email. I mean, email's probably primarily how they're getting through and kind of initiating these through phishing, but we're seeing it everywhere. If they can find a way to communicate with you through Twitter, LinkedIn, email, phone, text, it's pretty bad.
So let me ask you a practical question then. What is the right amount of training engagement you expect from people, right? Like some people do it once a year because like they need to just check the box and they did it. And hey, we did our awareness training, and maybe they'll do one phishing testing where like the Amazon thing goes in and we've done our yearly check-in and have a nice day. But like to me, that's like, that's not enough. But then what's the balance, right? What's too much? What's not enough? Like, how do I find the medium point?
We like to think of it as consistently training month over month, and we really look at this as a forever service, because the bad guys are continuing to get better and better. You got to stay up with the latest tricks and trends. You have to meet regulatory insurance renewals. I mean, we're seeing, insurance companies either denying or premiums are going up if you can't check the box that you're doing at minimum annual cybersecurity training. But we believe in this is what we do with all of our MSPs and their customers is train monthly on phishing. So we're sending relevant phishing campaigns every month and reporting back to the organizations and the MSP. And then also those enrollments. So annual training if they have compliance, PCI, GDPR, HIPAA. And then like deep dive trainings where we're going through specific topics like social engineering or working remotely, and really kind of having content that really isn't too lengthy. I mean, I think the longest training that we currently have at Hook is 30 minutes, and that's our annual training. That's our longest training that we offer. Everything else is pretty much 2 minutes or less, quick videos, fun, engaging, to keep it fresh, relevant. But monthly training is on phishing and within some type of subject in cybersecurity is where we really are coaching and recommending all of our MSPs and their customers to be on a monthly trading cadence.
I would say, I have no data behind this. I'm kind of like just doing this. I would say 95% of people are doing it one time a year, and that's it.
Majority, yep, a lot are, because of that checking the box thing that you're mentioning. Hey, what do I have to do? This is what you have to do. Okay, I'm not doing anything else, right? We're going to fish our organization once for the year. And, the bad guys are deploying thousands and thousands a day, if not more, pinpointing you as a business. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 employees or if you're 20,000 employees. If you have information, data, money, they're coming after you. So
interesting. So like how does the program work from an MSP standpoint, right? Like, all right, I've identified whatever tools I'm using now are fractured, or like, hey, I had like a phishing training with this guy, but like it's okay, and maybe I'll get like, maybe I'm in it could be a doctor's office, so I have like this HIPAA thing once a year, so I do that, but like nothing comprehensive across my my customers, right? So like I see this, I'm like, you know what? We need to do more than just, the one time a year. I stumble upon Hook. I'm like, okay, this is more than just the boring, 1, 2, 3, watch the video and like fall asleep on the keyboard. Now what?
So because we work with MSPs, right, we have 2 subscriptions that a partner can get in on. Is we have a tier 1 subscription and tier 2. And you get a subset of users. So majority of the MSPs we're working with have 500 or more employees under management in their managed services. So that's typically the MSP that we're working with. And so in tier 1, you get 600 users total, and that gets you a good price per user per month as well. And then we provide the SaaS platform. So we give you the phishing simulator, the template library, all the things that you need to phish. We have a learning management system within our platform as well to administer all of those training modules. So annual training, PCI, HIPAA, et cetera. And then we have a report generator as well that we're running reports for those MSPs and their customers every month. So it's really 2 simple subscriptions that you sign up for as an MSP. It's a monthly fee. And then we fully manage the whole program for you as an MSP. So if you said, hey, I got 650 users, come sign on as a tier 1. And then every single one of those users, we're going to train monthly with phishing simulations based off the relevant tricks and trends. If people click on those links, they're going to immediately be sent to an instant training moment where it says, hey, you just got hooked. And we're going to have a fun Saturday night lifestyle skit where they go through, like, we're making fun of all these pumpkins that are dying for all these pumpkin spice lattes, right? And then we actually go through the template with that end user and say, hey, George, here's the 2 things that you missed in this Starbucks pumpkin spice latte email. And that's where we're infusing that pattern recognition skill. So really bringing in that psychological security and how we think about training the brain to recognize these things. And then it's all wrapped up in a nice bow for the MSP. So in some cases, we've taken 2 or 3 employees at an MSP off a phishing simulator and allow them to either add additional value into the platform by like, hey, well, I know that these 3 customers that are healthcare companies, let's send them these 4 campaigns. And then I know Hook Security on the back end has other campaigns in the program running. So now you're actually adding value even more on top of what we have here for you as an MSP. So that's basically the way it works. All of our subscriptions are annual subscriptions, and majority of our MSPs are selling annual subscriptions as well for this.
So Brad, can I ask a question here? I'm curious. What have you seen as being a successful model from some of your partners as far as pricing to the end customer? I mean, basically, what do you walk in there and say, hi, Mr. Customer, you're about to pony up 100, 200, 300, 500. What's the successful number?
Great question, Brent. We're seeing on average, kind of the sweet spot at about $2 a user a month is what our resale partners are selling Hook for.
So heck yeah, $24 a year, that ought to be pretty affordable.
Mhm.
At $2 a user a month, I mean, it's one of those things where you wrap it up into your thing at, like most MSPs have some sort of, hey, every year we can do like a 2 to 5%, kind of bump. And then you try and like provide more value as part of that somewhere. So, at $2 a user, I mean, typical organization, I guess it depends on the size, right? Could be, 25 users, 50 users, 100 users, right? Like divided by 12. But do you guys charge upfront for the year, or do you let people pay monthly on an annual?
So we do a lot. I mean, we have recommendations for the MSP, but typically we're charging monthly to the MSP, and depending on how, I mean, some of them will say, hey, we're charging monthly, or we do annual, but typically it's monthly.
Cool. Well, that makes it, I mean, Brent, that makes it even easier, right? Because then you can just match how you charge your customer to how you're paying the bill.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I'm going to tell you now, I mean, I feel like this is like the nagger, thing, right? Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I know I got to do it. Or, hey, yeah, I do a little bit of it, but there's no consistency, right? I think that's the big problem. Like having something and then nobody ever presses the button to actually action anything. And then last minute before the insurance renewal comes in, you're like, oh yeah, I pressed the start button. And then, and then like all of a sudden it's like it's not even real, right? It's like just a fugazi, kind of, yeah, I did it. But no, that didn't really provide any value. It's a surprise. I would be surprised, right? And then we talk about this all the time. We laugh about it, right? About how the executives think that they're smarter than everybody else, and then all of a sudden they don't need all the extra security because they're not the problem, but they are the problem. So, so on the Hook manages it for you. Do you, I assume there's automation, but do you, once there's a sub account assigned to an end user underneath of an MSP, you start this track automatically, right? You're not waiting for a human being to press a button, right?
No, you're exactly right. And that was one of the issues that we saw. We when we first started, we kept talking to more and more MSPs. And I'm like, dude, you got a whole landing page, you got a whole place on your website that says all about phishing and threats and security training. And then you talk to them and they're like totally consumed with everything else going on. And they're like, Brad, I can't keep up with it. And similar to what you just said, George, hey, I pushed it at the very end of the contract before renewal. I mean, I've heard that exact thing. And so with us, it's like, hey, well, look, partner with us. And not only are we going to provide you what you currently have, but we're also going to manage it for you. And we're bringing the content that your users are going to actually enjoy and watch and retain and have memorable experiences that then help you build better conversations around everything else that you're selling, right? And I mean, I even like to tell our MSPs, use our platform as a sales tool, right? You're about to go have lunch or have a beer with a prospect, shoot them from our website, from our platform, give them a phishing email. Like, and then when you're sitting down with them, say, hey, George, look, there's a lot of things I want to come talk to you about. But one of them is the human side of security. I sent you an email before I came in. I want you to pull that up, probably hit your spam filter because we didn't do any whitelisting, and have them click on it and go through it. And now we're having conversations about, the service, but then that can lead into so many other conversations on all the other great things that you're offering from a services standpoint.
I'm gonna pause you right there. I mean,
Okay.
the trick back in the day, I know you guys are all around before, all these companies got gobbled up a few years ago, but like, like you would, the wow factor would be you did a dark web search on someone, their email, and you showed up and they're like, hey, is your password this? And they're like, where'd you get that from? And you're like, It's like, we need to talk. Imagine you sending a phishing email to someone and then like you go to have the conversation, be like, hey, before our meeting, I know this might be our first time we're talking. Yeah, you clicked on this. And like, by the way, this is the problem, right? Like, it's not just you, it's human issue, right? But like, if you can get caught and tricked, then everybody else that's working for you is just waiting for the time bomb, right? That's a cool conversation, right? Like, because all of a sudden you're actually coming in with like not a hypothetical, tangible, right? Hey, here it is. This is what happened. Really cool, right? Like imagine just hitting somebody's website. You see a bunch of people listed. You grab all their email addresses. You throw them into the tool. You go for your first meeting. Be like, hey guys, you need help.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And it gives you, yeah, and that's one thing that we really try to coach the MSP to think through that, the owners or anyone that's utilizing the platform to say, hey, I mean, like, use us, use everything that we have here, right? And it has worked. It has worked.
Something too that I see in that with Brad, the thing that I like about this is that you manage it. That is always the biggest thing, is that, oh my God, I've got this neat, wonderful, cool phishing tool. Now I got to learn it. I got to put a campaign together. I got to go through, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do the other. And suddenly now you're spending an awful lot of time for that $2 a user per month, kind of a thing with that. So that was something that I'm seeing looks really attractive from the MSP side of things. But something I did want to ask you, and that's, how are users entered into and removed from the system in there? Because, a lot of times, go through, and I'm working with a company right now, and I'm sitting here and they've got realistically 18 people and 31 mailboxes. And so how do I know, how do people get into the system, and how do they get removed from the system?
Great question. Great question. So all of our MSPs they are assigned a client success manager that works specifically with you on all of these onboardings, but we have a couple different ways we can import the users. Most favorite way and best recommendation is through Active Directory sync, Azure, O365. So we have a Microsoft Graph integration.
I see. I see you pulling it right from their tenant. Okay,
right,
cool.
From their tenant, right? And as long as we're pulling from the right distribution group, we're able to resync every so often, so that if users do come on or users fall off, they automatically are added into the trainings, and then they start going into the campaigns, into the modules from there. And then, for some other MSPs, they're like, hey, we just want to do a CSV file. We can do that. It's a little bit more manual, but our client success team, Brent, works to ensure that those stay up to date with your team. So we're constantly making sure that's happening.
I think
we do have an LDAP server.
For their own billing, they have a hard time keeping up with the manual. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do the CSV.
Yeah. I do not like to do the CSV. We do try to, it's so manual. But we do have an LDAP server sync as well that we can utilize. Not as many partners utilize the LDAP sync, but we do have it if that's something
I think 98% of MSPs are doing Office 365. You just got to sign in, do the Active Directory sync, and call it a day. Set it and forget it. That's what they're going to do.
It's done. Yep.
Because assuming it works the way it's supposed to, you add, you remove, it just automatically will filter from that, and you're done. And we know, how bad are people even just on, it's one of the biggest security things. Oh, well, the account was active, but the employee was gone. They never contacted you. They're still there. All that crap, right? It happens all the time. Then you actually supposed to sit down with your customers on a maybe quarterly basis and go through, and then and then of course, when that doesn't happen, a year later, you find out, some contractor account got hacked or something. But I know these stories. I think that's how the Home Depot HVAC one from way back when happened, right? It was like a contractor. They had added an employee that had subcontractor access to their system, Home Depot, to go and do whatever. And then that person left, their account was never deactivated, and bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, it's not good.
Because everybody uses the passwords everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So the Facebook password is also my email password for work. Bad idea.
And that's what we try to train on, right? And make it to where it's a memorable experience, so that they are thinking about, hey, you know what? I don't even need to call these passwords anymore. I need to call it a passphrase, because honestly, that's actually where we want users to begin to use phrases instead of passwords. It's a lot harder to crack for a bad guy.
Yeah. Interesting. I like it. The points Brent brought up are pretty good, right? Automatic enrollment and disenrollment. You're actually actioning the platform. I don't have to go and actually remember every month and in my Outlook calendar event to go and press a button to send the thing. I assume reports go back to you, the MSP. I assume if you want to, you can send it back to your customer automatically so that they realize that Susie in the front desk needs some help. I mean, it actually pays for itself a little bit.
You know, in a lot of instances too, getting the thing set up is just like, oh my God, half the time of the thing is just figuring out how to get these spamming, so to speak, emails to go through somebody else's filter and stuff like that for stuff. If I can offload that to Brad, that's gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's the worst analogy everyone's going to hear today, but I always say it. I don't know why I keep saying it, but like a plumber plumbs every day. I mean, we do whitelisting all day for our MSP partners, and not only that, I will take it another step further. We're also, I mean, we're not just like send an email, okay, who clicked, run the report, send it to the MSP, send it to the customer. We're actually saying too, like, okay, who are our repeat offenders? I mean, this George guy keeps clicking on these things, and he's like,
I like Starbucks, man. I don't, by the way, but
but you know, but this, yeah, I know, but at the same time, it's like, hey, George has failed now 2 simulations over the course of 3 months. We need to put George into some remediation training, and this is not going to be boring. This is not going to be like George like hitting his head, throwing his hat. He's going to be like, all right, I know I failed. What am I watching here? And it's more of like a Modern Family style sitcom that you're going through like, hey, here's some red flags on phishing emails that you're missing. Like, you know, poor quality logos, you know, misspellings, the things that really, once you get the concepts, you're like, oh yeah, I got duped, you know, I got scammed. But we're also, Brent, keeping up with your users along the way so that you're not having to go in and even review a report if you don't want to. I do. Most of our partners are reviewing those, you know, bringing them up in their QBRs. Another thing that I will mention is that we're seeing a lot of our MSP partners having conversations with the HR department in their organizations, which is huge and which is great because we're talking about people. So now we're thinking, let's create a culture here, right? Through the platform, through the training, through the phishing. But now when you're doing an annual review with your employees, guess what's a piece of that annual review? How many phishing emails did you click on this year? Okay, great, George, you completed the annual training and it looks like you went through remediation training. And now we're beginning to really have those conversations with the team.
I feel like I'm going to create a driver's license based business. Be like, hey, you know, if you've gotten so many points on your license, you have to go into like mandatory retraining. And then if you still can't get it right, then like there's going to be a suspension, right? Just push your keyboard away. Can't use a computer. You're not allowed.
So you get a green driver's license or an orange driver's license or a pink one.
You got a beginner's permit.
But in all seriousness, right? Like big picture, back to the chain's only as good as the weakest link. Like cyber is a legitimate issue. And like that could cripple the business. If you got somebody that's real, I would hope that people know the competency of their employees from a technology standpoint. Now everybody says that they're good, but if you can't put an Excel spreadsheet together, then, you know, are you right for the job? That being said, I mean, probably doesn't look good if you did find somebody that continuously is not getting better, right? They keep on getting tricked, and then.
That's exactly where my mind is going at too, George. Give us an example of somebody who's had to have you need to get this person out of the company here because they're too big a liability for you.
Here you go. Bruce popped in the chat and said, true that. I've got clients that give their staff warning letters for subpar training school. Because it's real, right? Because you can take the company out of business. And we all have heard the stats, right? Most small businesses don't recover from a security related incident, right? Ransomware or data breach or whatever, you know, just from, you know, multiple reasons. But yeah, I mean, like if you got, you know, people who are going to potentially leave the window, you know, ceiling open for the bad guys to just swoop in. I mean, we've all heard this, right? Like because they're getting so good on the bad guy side, they're just doing things at really mass scale and just waiting for like, you know, whoever bubbles up to the top, right? So if that's your person, you've now bubbled your company effectively, you know, self-inflicted wound, right? You've intentionally pushed yourself to the top of the target list.
A really good point there. One thing, a story I can tell is one that we've heard. There was a bank here that has multiple offices and regional offices, and the regional manager of this branch was driving down the road, clicked on a phishing email that was part of education from his bank, and then he did it again. And they said, hey, you got to go sit through 4 hours of training, and if you do it again, your quarterly bonus is on the line.
Oh, okay.
So there's
Yeah,
like financial.
pocketbook is always an effective motivator.
Again, you know, we really want to take the non-punitive approach here at Hook, and that's what we do, because we know that humans make mistakes, and you have to expect that. But at the same time, after getting some training in and doing it, I mean, it's all about reinforcing at that point.
Well, let me go on the other path, right? Because you're like, hey, let's make fun of it, SNL skit, whatever. But like MSPs, right? We keep on talking about risk, right? And reducing risk and trying to lower the potential for something to happen. Because at the end of the day, when the bomb hits, you're in the middle of it. You know, you can say whatever you want. You're going to be in the middle of it. So like to some degree, like, you know how we've talked in the past about MSPs in their contracts or MSAs mandating that there's certain, you know, insurance coverages at the end user side and limits and whatever. But if you, as the service provider, keep on seeing a company that has a lot of just mistakes happening from a technology standpoint, this is no different than in my opinion, the parallel is, hey, this is a customer that won't replace anything till it melts down, right? They're waiting for their computers to literally just not turn on anymore before they replace their equipment. You know, they don't want to refresh anything, right? They're calling you when the fire starts, you know, because they want it all, you know, back up and running tomorrow. And like, you know, that's the bad customer. We all know that, right? But on the flip side, this is like the employee version of that, right? If you keep on having customers with a lot of people who keep on getting, you know, like, you know, spoofed, fooled, whatever, like chances are there's a bomb on the end of that, time bomb for that matter. But I mean, that's a concern from a liability standpoint, because that just means that you're going to get sucked into a large issue down the road that's going to be super time consuming.
Oh yeah. And you make a really good point there. Absolutely. And it's as simple as just implementing training. And it really is. And getting your users accustomed to, hey, look, we're an organization that, yes, as an employee, I want you to know what malware is. I want you to know what malware is, you know, like if you're driving, like back to the whole permit and driver's license, you know, if you're driving, I want you to know what a stop sign is, you know, I want you to know what a yellow light means. And when you're in email, and malware is one of those things that you have to know about. Most people don't care or think about it, but and that's why we do bring in that, you know, edutainment, right? To really try to make it
Engaging.
Yeah.
Bruce pops in and says, funny story. I've got one client whose CEO lost his mind when I showed him his scores. He stopped the meeting, started calling his staff while I'm in the meeting with them, telling his staff to improve their scores. Well, how do you do that, right? It's like, hey, you need to type faster. Like that's something that happens over time, right? Like it's not, okay, let me concentrate and type faster, right? So I don't know. I think that's, you know, some of it's a time game, some of it's a repetition game. I think that's the key word that I've gotten out of this whole session, which is once a year ain't going to do it. You need consistency and repetition so that these people, you know, start to pay attention and say, uh-oh, I now need to like double think before I do these, you know, these bad things, right? Especially when, and let's be fair, Brad, you tell me if I'm wrong. Now that this whole hybrid working thing is like it's gonna be around for a while, and work from home, whatever you want to call it, like these people definitely don't think as diligently about what they're doing on work equipment when they're at home versus when they're in an office space. It's the truth. Because like, you know, when you're in an office and all, you know, cubes or whatever, like somebody could walk by and you may, you know, have something bad on your computer that you don't want, shouldn't have at work. But at home, right? Like who's around me, right? And I think that's a little bit more, the door's way more open for you to do bad things, even inadvertently, right? Like, hey, I didn't think twice before I clicked on this, or I didn't, you know, like I got spoofed and I just clicked because I'm clicking on 30 things and I'm not quite, you know, paying attention to all my work stuff like I should. I just think that like it's a little more of a relaxed environment is what I've been trying to say.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, the threat is now at home and the bad guys know it. And so, you know, not only are we now trying to train on like, hey, here's the policies and procedures of our, you know, our office and how we do things, but now you're having to kind of think through the router here that I have and what, you know, passwords and, you know, I have kids running around here. Who knows who's going to see my screen? So yeah, we have specific modules on cybersecurity safety at home that we enroll users into just for that that new approach that's just here. So
so one or two things comes to mind, right? You know how we've talked over and over again, if you've been following the show, about how people have been dealing with cybersecurity renewals, right? They either like staple a bunch of stuff to the response and send it back in because like yes and no just don't cover it, or they ask to speak to the underwriter or whatever, right? There's been all these approaches that have been really clever, right? Catch 22, right? Hey, look, my people have really good scores, and you attach it, right? Versus, hey, look, my people have really bad scores. That probably doesn't help you.
yeah, I mean, you're right, but I think at the same time, I mean, God forbid you got to stand in front of a judge and show that at bare minimum, you know, we've hired a reputable MSP that has been helping us with training and phishing, and here's, you know, all of our 200 employees that have gone through the annual and all the other things. So look, again, I mean, it comes down to, we're going to make mistakes as humans. And what can we do to prepare every human as best way possible, you know, through a little bit of training, a little bit of fishing, and keep it consistent.
So I'm going to go sideways here. So what are the worst offenders clicking on? I got to assume Amazon, right? What else?
PayPal's a big one.
PayPal. Okay.
PayPal's a big one. Like one of our recent campaigns that we're rolling out this month is Zillow. We've seen a large uptick in Zillow. Everyone's kind of looking at real estate or looking to sell, and we've seen some of that happening. Name a brand and they're spoofing it. Microsoft, Google are two very potent ones that we're seeing as well right now in the wild. You know, Office 365 failed login, those type of
they're actually getting pretty good at that one.
Very devious.
It looks pretty good.
Very devious. I mean, Uber. I mean, you guys heard about Uber. I mean, I just took a couple of Ubers last week in Nashville, and you know, they got social engineered. And y'all seen what's happened with that?
That wasn't that it was like the kid that like opened up the whole, yeah, all of a sudden they find out all this stuff's like wide open, plain texts, you know, SWAT, you know, behind the scenes, right? So yeah, that was a cool, or I'm sorry, scary story.
But also these, also one that we're seeing too is our business email compromises, where it looks like it's coming from George, right? And you're sending one of your employees like, hey, go get, people are still falling for those Amazon gift cards. They really are. And I'm
going to send some of those requests to Matthew Fox, see if he sends me gift cards. I was at an event in Fort Lauderdale, Taylor Business Group, big, actually. We were doing the MSP community boat party, and a guy came up to me on the boat, and he said that he had a junior guy who was on staff who fell for that. Like inside the IT company, he fell for, the CEO, you know, spoofed email to say, go send these gift cards. So he did. He went out and bought gift cards. And I guess had like mentioned it to somebody before in passing that he was on his way to buy gift cards, and somebody was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? And like the dude was like, yeah, I told this, like he wasn't the owner, the CEO, but he was like responsible for cybersecurity within the MSP. And he just basically was like, yeah, I don't care if you keep employing this guy, but I've disabled all his accounts. He can't touch anything. And that was within the MSP. And I was like, I guess if they're falling for the scam within the actual MSP, then yeah, I felt bad because he's probably a young guy, like he was saying, but yeah, that's an oops.
Let me ask you this question. Do any of y'all have, you know, kids in college and, you know, young adults in college? We are seeing students that are getting phished by, you know, they just come into fall semester, let's say big university. And we're seeing even the students get these phishing emails to their .edu account that says, hey, Brent, this is a link that you need to borrow your science lab materials for. They click the link. It's like, hey, it's $2,800 or it's $1,000 for all this. The students are clicking it, sending the money, and then they're reporting this up to the uppers at these schools. And now it's becoming a problem with even universities and smaller colleges that we need to get our students trained as well. So we're seeing that too.
Oh,
You know, that's Brad, that's a great thing here. Recently, Mail Protector actually put in a filter for one of the local universities in our area here. It's a huge university, and I was assuming that it was something exactly like what you're talking about. You know, so.
Yeah. And we love Mail Protector. I don't know if y'all know this, but Mail Protector is right here in Greenville where I am today.
Yeah, yeah.
Great guys.
Another thing too that I've seen here is people who are involved in like repair, automotive repair or contracting and stuff like that, getting emails that talk about them having a core charge refund that they need to go in and get. They get core charges all the time and refunds for them and stuff like that. So that's not necessarily an unusual thing to have happen. And they'll get them on the hook and boom.
Done. They're hooked.
Yep.
Mark, you have your hand up, buddy. Go ahead. Unmute. What do you got for us?
What I was going to say is I had a call after 6 o'clock, and it was somebody that had worked all day, came home, everything was compromised, their systems, their tablets, their laptops, their phones. So there was nothing but panic and pandemonium. And I said, well, are you convinced? I mean, sure, you could call the banks and close all your accounts and do all this stuff, but do you actually know you were compromised? Because it's one thing being phished, and it's completely different of being completely compromised.
Like fruit, it's like fruit of the poison tree, right?
Right.
Starts off at one area, and like, I know Brad said it a little bit earlier in the call, and we've probably all seen it, but you know, sometimes they hang out in your system for a long time. Like
Right.
they could hang out for months, 6 months, right? And then all of a sudden, like, hammer falls. And some of the times they're doing that to see like what your cadences are, right? Who you're talking to on a regular basis, and you know, like what your email signatures look like, right? If they change, right? Like, because the best chance for them to spoof somebody else that you're connected to is by making it look 100% legit, right? So yeah, I mean, and then of course, like once you ask that question, well, how long have they been in here, right? Who knows what they've captured?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
but the most common things are those emails that you get about all of the pictures they've got of me on an illicit website, and they're going to go through and they're going to tell, you know, if I don't send Bitcoin to them. That's the most prevalent thing here. Somebody who's out there hiding in a system, they're just waiting for Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, you know, some kind of a time when everybody is off the clock and not paying attention.
It's like in February when, you know, 1-800-Flowers has their highest revenue month. You know how many husbands and boyfriends are clicking on the 1-800-Flowers, you know, confirmation email that they sent the flowers? Because so many people, you know, are sending flowers to their girlfriend or wife, Valentine's Day. Bad guys know it. They send them out and they do it. We actually, man, we got a lot of husbands in February this year, but we got a lot of wives too on it too, thinking that they, you know, maybe they sent their husband something. But with that said, you're exactly right, Brent. It's all about the seasonality of things too. So, good point.
No, hey, I like it. I mean, walking in here, I'm like, huh, yeah. How many times has somebody talked about education platforms? But the problem is most of the vendors out there that have like tacked it on, to your point, if you don't action it, it doesn't matter. And if they're not engaging, then they fall flat. And then like you didn't, other than catching your people clicking on something, when you do run them, like kind of falls short there, right? So I mean, it makes sense now, you know, like having gone through this now and hearing it, and you know, the price point reasonable. Terms, reasonable. How the platform works, very automated. Tie it automatically in, set it and run. And then basically you're going back and working off of the information that's already been accumulated based on how the system's running. I like it.
Well, thank you. And the content, right? The content is one of the things
that's the engaging part, right? If they don't interact, then
yeah, one thing I want to say is that we don't hate cartoons here at Hook. We don't use cartoons at Hook because we're talking about training real people, and we really want to bring that style of content that users are used to consuming. And so yeah, we really work hard on that piece too.
Does your thing actually say you've been hooked?
Yeah, it does. It says you just got hooked when you click on a phishing campaign. Yeah.
That's fine.
And it can all be white labeled too with the MSP as well. Like we can do.
I like that line. You've been hooked. That's fun. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Don't change that. You should just run with that. I like that. You can show up to the quarterly meeting and be like, here's your hooked report. It's not
That's
here. Awesome. Brad, I really appreciate you for jumping on. Quite frankly, I think this is, like I was trying to, in the beginning of this, he's like, oh, we try and work on the human being side of security. I'm like, what is he talking about? And I was like, now it makes sense, right? Like this is where people actually and their behavior really drives what you're doing. I like that. I like that a lot. And so hopefully some of you guys are coming down to Orlando. You gotta meet with Brad. You're gonna be at IT Nation, yeah?
We're there, man. We're going to be there. We're gold sponsors at IT Nation. And obviously we're a proud sponsor of the block party.
So you're going to have time. You're going to connect with Brad, check this thing out. What is it? Hooksecurity.com?
.co.
.co. .co. Go check it out. Go check it out. And then there you go. And then I'm sure you can find Brad online, right? He doesn't hide, right? He's not in the basement with the hoodie. So send him a message if you want more information. It sounds like they have a program specifically designed for MSP land. So this is your chance to go and, kind of check the box and make it work. And, the fact that they do monthly billing makes it super easy for you, right? You don't have to front the whole year in order to get your customer started, right? I think that's a good story. What happens if you need to add more, Brad? What happens if you start at a couple hundred users and then it grows? How's it work?
Yeah, you just add them on as you go. So once you kind of get to that threshold of tier 1 or tier 2, you just basically are just like, hey, I got another 25 user company or another 100 user company. We just add from there. And since you lock in the tier 1 price or the tier 2 price, and then from there it's just add as you go. Awesome.
Beautiful. Guys, this is the stuff, I think Brent hooked on this. See, I like that, hooked on to something good. All these tools out there, but if you're not administering them, they don't, they're kind of just sitting in the garage, not being used. So I think these guys did something good here with the automation, and like they're actually actioning the platform on top of the users that are being automatically enrolled. And like by the time you turn around to figure out what's going on, like this thing's been running in the background for you. That's strong. And I think a lot of vendors need to pick up that concept, right? Because how many times have you heard, hey, nobody's using this to its full potential, or, hey, we had it, but we never turned it on, or, hey, do we still need this? We're paying for it. Like,
exactly. I've got a saying that I like to talk about, and that's an unused tool is no bargain at any price.
You would think that, but then people go to things like trade show events and they just swipe and swipe.
I know. I'm guilty a lot of times too.
I mean, like implementation, right? That's like actually getting it off the ground. You know how many times people go and they see the show special? I'm not, and please, vendors, don't get upset with me, but like they see the show special, they buy. 6 months later, they're like, oh, I didn't even turn it on. That's the problem. Just saying. All right, my friend, and thank you everyone for coming online. Again, we're still doing these Tuesdays, Thursdays, even down at IT Nation. We'll still be doing these on Tuesdays, Thursdays. And don't forget the block party. Even if you're not going to a conference, you can still come to Orlando and check out the party. So we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, guys, this session was recorded. Wait a little bit. Should be on mspinitiative.com under sessions. Again, you can rewind and then go back and talk to Brad and pick his brain. But I like it. I like what they did here. Actioning stuff for you. Write that one down. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, George.
See ya.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.